All right, everyone, let's dive in. You know it's election day in the Faroe Islands.
Oh, the energy is definitely there.
And we are ready to bring you all the latest.
Like a whirlwind tour of today's news.
Exactly. We've got our stack of headlines right here from KVF.
In Duffo as well.
And of course, VP.fo.
It's amazing what you can glean from just a quick look at the headlines, isn't it? A real snapshot of what's on people's minds.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into it. Shall we start with the election?
Sounds good to me.
It seems like everyone and their sisters out voting.
Especially in Hoyvik and Klaksvik.
Big turnout there.
Hoyvik even has their own polling station for the first time in 40 years.
That's according to in.fo.
Imagine. What a difference that must make for local representation.
I bet. In Buffalo even quoted an election official over there saying,
Let me guess.
her gonger stralendi.
Well, that's certainly encouraging.
It definitely seems like things are running smoothly.
But smooth sailing isn't always the case, eh?
You're right about that. VP.fo pointed out some of the campaigning challenges in callback.
Oh, right. They merged with Torshad way back when.
In the 70s.
It's fascinating how those old decisions can still have an impact.
It really is. And speaking of complicated legacies,
The Suarayar Tunnelin,
you read my mind.
that debate seems like it will go on forever.
Well, KVF reported that the governor of the National Bank
What did they say?
basically threw some cold water on the whole thing.
Saying we just can't afford it right now.
You got it.
That's got to be disappointing for the folks in Suroy.
Though on the other hand, VP.who highlighted,
The political support.
yeah, there seems to be a consensus about how important connecting Suroy is.
So it's more a matter of how than if.
I suppose so. And of course, there's always that local angle.
What do you mean?
VP.fo actually printed a reader's letter
Oh, no.
accusing a politician of basically playing politics to protect jobs related to the tunnel project in Suroy.
Oh, I see. Trying to keep those construction jobs going.
Makes you wonder what will happen if the tunnel doesn't go through.
It's always more than just the project itself.
But hey, it's not all politics and infrastructure, right? We've got some good news, too.
Oh, tell me about it. I need something uplifting.
Well, Ellen Arogvi, you know she won that huge award.
The Nordic Council Children and Young People's Literature Prize for...
That's the one. For Flight of Fugler.
Fantastic book.
And guess what?
She has a new one out.
Called Fornt, released today.
Talk about striking while the iron's hot. I love to see our writers getting recognized.
Me too. And speaking of writers, VP.4 had a review of Una Arge's new book.
Veershuka 2. I saw
It
that.
sounds fascinating.
All about how we Faroes live with this intense weather.
I mean, it shapes everything, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And you know what else is exciting?
Spill the beans.
There's a new play premiering at Luxol,
I saw that on VP.4. What's it called?
Droppy Air 2, which means you are a drop.
I might just have to check that out.
Sounds intriguing, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. But you know, as much as we like to focus on what's happening here,
Can't ignore the rest of the world.
sadly, yeah, there were all those headlines about Trump trying to make a comeback.
And the situation in Gaza is just heartbreaking.
Not to mention the war in Ukraine. It just drags on and on.
It's a heavy reminder that we're part of something much bigger, even out here in the middle of the Atlantic.
It is. And it's not like we're completely removed from it all.
Right. Invafo had an article about the Faroes handball team's match against Ukraine.
And I saw that a Faroes referee is going to officiate an upcoming game between Armenia and the Faroe Islands.
I read that too, also in .fo. It's amazing how sport can bring people together, even with all the political tensions.
I totally agree. And speaking of connections,
Did you see that story about the suitcases?
oh, from VP.fo, about the money.
Yeah. The customs officials in Copenhagen found over 1 million kroners in cash stuffed in suitcases from Greenland.
1.7 million, to be exact.
Who knows what that was all about?
Some kind of smuggling ring?
Maybe. It definitely sparks the imagination.
It does. But, you know, sometimes the most interesting stories are the smaller ones, the ones that show us what life is really like here.
Oh, I love those.
Well, according to VP.fo, Andrea Poulsen in Sultangara celebrated her 100th birthday.
Wow. What an amazing milestone.
That's incredible. And then there's the new bridge over Leonara in Kvivik.
Making it much easier to get around, I bet.
I read that on VP.fo as well, you know. Little things like that can make a big difference in people's lives.
They really can. But those individual stories are happening against the backdrop of some bigger trends.
What do you mean?
Well, KVF had a piece about the declining birth rates and increasing life expectancy.
Oh, right, like what we were just talking about with Andrea Poulsen turning 100.
Exactly. It makes you think about what the future holds for the Faroes.
A lot more centenarians, maybe?
Maybe. But also new challenges, right? A smaller workforce, more need for elder care.
True. We'll need to find some creative solutions.
And speaking of creative solutions, did you see this?
What is it?
VP.Foy had a recipe for snaps.
Snaps.
But with turmeric.
Turmeric snaps. Really?
Apparently. Maybe that's their solution for a longer, healthier life.
I'm not sure about that.
Who knows? It's certainly interesting. But I think we've given everyone plenty to think about for now.
We have. We'll be back soon to explore some of these themes in more depth and what they mean for the future of the Faroe Islands.
So stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. We've gone through a whole bunch of news from the Faroes today.
Yeah, we've seen the excitement of the election,
The never-ending tunnel saga.
even those quirky little stories that make life here so unique.
Now we want to take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
What does all this news actually mean for the Faroe Islands?
How does it affect our future?
That's what we're here to discuss.
Let's start with the election.
Even though the final results aren't in,
We can already see what topics are important to people.
like local representation
Infrastructure development.
and the role of women in politics.
Absolutely. These are all issues that will shape the direction of the Faroe Islands.
They'll have an impact long after the election is over.
And then there's the Sue Royartunnelin.
It's such a fascinating case study.
In balancing ambition with practicality.
We want to connect Suroy to the rest of the islands.
But can we really afford it?
That's the million kroner question, literally.
But it's more than just money, isn't it?
It's about how we support all our communities.
Making sure everyone has a chance to thrive no matter where they live.
And what about those demographic changes we talked about?
The declining birth rates.
Increasing life expectancy.
Those are going to have a big impact on our society.
Imagine a smaller workforce having to support a larger elderly population.
It puts a strain on everything.
Healthcare, social services.
We're going to need some serious innovation to meet those challenges.
And it's amazing how all these news stories connect to each other.
They're all part of this bigger narrative.
The story of the Faroe Islands.
A story that's still being written.
But it's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all. We've also seen some incredible examples of resilience and creativity.
Like Ilona Rodvi winning that prestigious literature prize.
And releasing a brand new book on the same day.
Talk about making a statement.
It shows that Faroese culture is alive and well.
And Andrea Poulsen celebrating her 100th birthday.
It's a testament to the strength and longevity of the Faroese people.
But it also makes us think,
About how we care for our elders.
how do we make sure they have a good quality of life?
Especially as their numbers grow.
It's something we need to figure out.
And what about those international news stories?
The conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine.
They feel so far away.
But they're a reminder that we're all interconnected.
What happens in one part of the world affects us all.
Even here in the Faroe Islands.
We might be a small nation.
But we're still part of the global community.
And remember that suitcase full of cash from Greenland?
It's a strange little story.
But it shows how complex the world really is.
And how much goes on behind the scenes.
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
From local elections to global events.
From cultural triumphs to demographic challenges.
Now we want to hear from you.
What do you think?
How do you see these news stories affecting your life?
Your community.
The future of the Faroe Islands.
Take some time to reflect on everything we've talked about.
We'll be back soon to wrap up our deep dive and leave you with a final thought.
So, have you had a chance to think about it? All these headlines, what do they mean for you?
We've really gone on a journey, haven't we? Elections, tunnels, turmeric snaps.
The full Faroes experience.
That's us. But seriously, we hope you've been connecting the dots.
Seeing how all these seemingly separate stories are actually intertwined.
It's all part of the same fabric, right? The story of the Faroe Islands, past, present, and future.
And we want you to be a part of that story.
To think critically, ask questions, and maybe even find some answers.
Because that's what makes these deep dives so valuable.
It's not just about us telling you what's happening.
It's about all of us figuring out what it means together.
So as we wrap up this episode, we wanted to leave you with one final thought.
Remember how KVF mentioned that Faroes people are living longer?
It's great news, of course.
But it also presents new challenges.
How do we make sure our aging population is supported?
How do we create a society that values their experience and wisdom?
It's a question that deserves our attention.
And it's not something we can solve overnight.
But maybe it starts with small changes in our own communities.
Checking in on our elders.
Making sure they feel valued.
Creating opportunities for them to stay active and engaged.
Maybe that's the key to a longer, healthier, and happier life for all of us.
It's something to think about, isn't it?
It is. And we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
As always, thanks for joining us.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.